Today I'm going to talk about the cheapest way to build muscle and get shredded. Now, I've already made some videos regarding food shopping and meal prep on a budget, so we'll briefly go back over that kind of stuff, but also want to talk about all other associated costs, whether that's gym memberships, supplements, gym clothes, etc, etc. This video is sponsored by Plum. We'll talk more about that in a short while, but you might want to stick around for details of a competition that could bag you some cash that you then won't have to spend on getting massive related costs, because I'm about to tell you how to do that cheaply. Let's do it. Up first, training. Now, relatively speaking, your training should be quite a minor cost in relation to everything else. For example, the average gym membership in the UK costs £40.53. Now, you could quite easily spend that on like one pair of leggings, for example, if you're a girl, obviously, or if you're a boy who wears leggings, that's also completely optional. Now, before we even get into gym memberships, I would say probably the absolute cheapest way of training is probably calisthenics. Granted, there are drawbacks. It's harder to hit some muscle groups, and progression is a little bit more tricky than just picking up the next weight off the rack, but it's still a perfectly legitimate and can be quite effective way of building a solid physique. If you just Google outdoor calisthenics in your area, then chances are you'll be able to find a park with some pull-up bars, maybe even some parallel bars with dips, etc., which you'll then be able to go to and use as much as you please for the small fee of £0. Quite cheap. If you are going to actually go to the gym, I expect most of you are, then the cheapest option will obviously depend on the area, but it's most likely going to be something like Pure Gym, The Gym, or one of those other 24-hour chains. Now, obviously these gyms can tend to, smell quite pungently of rhinoceros, leg pit. And you're probably going to find some chewing gum stuck to the machines, but I mean, really, these are just things you're going to have to deal with if you're paying £10 to £20 a month for your gym membership. There is still geographic variation in terms of cost, but in terms of getting access to the most equipment for the least money, these are still your best bet, despite the rhinoceros odor. Now, there are often sales and introductory offers, especially in January, so keep your eye out for those. And Pure Gym also offer an off-peak membership, so if you do have set working hours and you're able to train at off-peak times, then they can actually be quite significantly cheaper. The good thing about these budget gyms is that you often aren't tied into any kind of long-term contract, so if you do happen to come into some money and you can leave that peasant lifestyle behind, then you're going to be able to do so without incurring a fee. Now, one thing to mention is that some apartments, especially inner cities, even some student accommodation these days, do have gyms in the building. Now, you might look at that and think, well, that's sweet because I might be saving on a gym membership, and that's potentially true, but the chances are these kind of things are already factored into your rent. You're probably going to be paying more of a premium to live in an apartment with a gym in the building than you would to live in one without and just pay for a Pure Gym membership. Do you know what I mean? It's like the free bread that you get at the restaurant. It's not really free. I mean, it's still nice. Free bread's great, right? But it's not free. It's baked into the cost of the, Gambaroni, mate. Now, I haven't mentioned training at home because when you work out how many months of a Pure Gym membership you'd have to skip to pay for some decent home equipment, you'd have to train for about 50 years before you make a saving that way. So that's really more of a luxury. And I know there's going to be people screaming at the screen saying,
I bought a skipping rope for a £5 off eBay and I have the sickest home workouts ever.
I'm like, I mean, fair enough, but obviously I'm referring to people who do want to get big. And I also just want to jump in and say, I've probably mentioned Pure Gym quite a lot. It might sound like an ad for Pure Gym. It's definitely not. I really do think the place has some certain issues with enforcing a basic level of gym etiquette, really a basic level of humanity. I've seen people do some horrific stuff in there. Anyway, still, it provides cheap access to a lot of gym equipment for a lot of people, and so ultimately it's obviously a good thing. Any budget gyms, that is. To wrap up this section, I would say that the relative cost of training is actually fairly low when you consider how much value you get from a gym membership, and so if it were me, then I would probably not be scared of spending a little bit extra on this and then trying to recoup some of those costs from elsewhere, i.e. some of the other stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video. Alright, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video. It is an app called Plum. It's on my phone. You can't see it. I'll put it here. Right, it's designed to make saving and investing your money easier than ever before. Now, it took me probably the best part of 30 years to realize the importance of staying on top of your finances. Thanks a lot, school curriculum. However, being the global YouTube star that I am, I'm kind of busy. I don't really have time to stay on top of macroeconomic trends or to put all my pennies in bags and then take them to that machine in Asda that converts them into money for you. So if you're busy like me or just lazy, also like me, and you still want to save and invest for the future, then I'm sure Plum can help you do that. So you just link up your bank account and then set your rules for saving. So there's a few cool little features, stuff like rounding up your spending to the nearest pound and then saving the change, or like automating your savings so they happen on payday. Loads of little things like that. But the main interesting part for me is that you can set it to automatically invest those savings into a variety of different funds with different focuses. Each fund gives you a risk rating and also tells you the exact companies that you'll be investing in, along with like a cool little calculator thing that gives you bases like an average rate of return and tells you how much money you'll have in like 30 years if you keep drip feeding money in. And that really is the key, because although it can be exciting, you know, I'm sure it's exhilarating to like remortgage the house and drop it all into GameStop. However, investing is really just a case of plodding along, drip feeding. You know, you are the hare, wait. You're the tortoise, not the hare, right? And an app like Plum makes it simple, easy, convenient. I mean, not just easy, it's literally effortless because it's automated, right? And it's free to download, and the investment features start from £1 a month. Now, on top of that, Plum are also running a competition where if you download through the link in the description and you start investing through Plum, after 8 weeks, they are going to randomly select one person, and anything that has been auto-invested by you, they will then double it. I think that's quite good. So, you know, hit the link in the description, download it, check it out. Good luck. I hope you win, right? If you win, give us a quid. You don't have to give me a quid. So I won't go over this in too much detail, but I will link some previous videos in the description of this video. To summarize, carbs and fat sources are generally going to be pretty cheap. It's really your fruit and veg and your protein sources that are going to be the expensive part. Now, there will of course be some variation depending on where you live and where you shop, but generally speaking, the cheapest protein sources tend to be things like whole eggs, chicken, and protein powder, which I will come on to later. Now, it's pretty easy to just check some prices in your local supermarkets and do a quick calculation and figure out how much each gram of protein is costing you. That's really the figure that matters. Fruit doesn't have to be expensive if you stay clear of the premium organic blueberries and just stick to things like tangerines, apples, bananas, etc. Obviously not pink lady apples, they're expensive, mate. You might have to eat gala, it's fine. And if you want some antioxidants, just eat things like dried fruit. You can't afford blueberries, mate. For veg, big bags of frozen veg will usually work out cheapest. Again, I will link a video where I did a budget food shop. One main point that I do want to make, and something that I think is often overlooked when it comes to saving money on your food shop, is food waste and trying to reduce it. Comparing the price of food in one supermarket to the price of food in another is only actually relevant on the assumption that you are going to consume it all. Otherwise, you know, if you buy something, end up throwing it out, it's only really one step removed from literally throwing money straight in the bin, which actually probably would have been better for the environment. So in the spirit of not just reducing costs, but also waste, and then by extension more costs, I would encourage you to buy frozen where you can, because in that case, you know, you are just much less likely to forget about something at the bottom of the fridge and then find it like 3 weeks later and it's like growing stuff. That's not ideal, but we're all human, it happens sometimes. And that goes for other things, not just veg, but also with meat and things like that. On that note, some freezer space is pretty essential, as that will allow you to buy things in bulk and do fewer supermarket trips. Another way to reduce food waste is to plan your meals out for the week before you do your food shop, so that you just buy the ingredients you need. Otherwise, you can end up just buying a random selection of ingredients and thinking, oh, I might put that in something, but then it never actually gets used. And on that note, some basic cooking knowledge would probably be handy, and you know what, you can learn that for free on YouTube. One thing I would avoid if you're on a budget is all these things that have now got protein stuffed into them, you know, like protein bread and protein bagels and protein cheese and all that kind of things, because often if you look at the cost, really, not only does it taste worse than the normal stuff, but it turns out more expensive to buy protein bread or whatever than it does to just buy bread and have a shake, you know what I mean? Now, where people do spend a disproportionate amount of money is on convenience food. Now, where you can obviously get around this and reduce those costs is, again, simply just by being prepared, whether that means doing actual full-on meal prep at the start of the week, and I have got videos on that, or just getting up like 5 minutes earlier and making yourself a sandwich in the morning. Even if you just save yourself a couple of pounds making your own sandwich over getting a meal deal, then these small savings add up to a lot, especially over the course of months and years, which is, you know, that's the time span that you live over, so you know it's relevant. Even if you saved like £2 a day, and let's say it's just 4 working weeks in a month, so that's £40 a month. An extra £40 a month is a pretty bougie gym membership, man. I'd rather do that. All right, let's move on to supplements. So of course the cheapest option is buy no supplements at all, but let's just stick with the basics for now, assuming that you're going to. So we'll stick with creatine and whey protein powder. And again, you really want to be looking at buying in bulk so that you can get the best price per serving. Always look at the per serving. So 1 kilogram of creatine monohydrate from bulk is currently $21.99 at full price. However, it's not usually full price. It might even be on offer by the time this video is live. So it's probably going to be even cheaper than the 15p per serving. And that 15 pence is per 5 grams, which is the actual serving that you need. So at full price, that's £4.50 a month. A 5 kilogram bag of pure whey protein on bulk is currently $66.60, which makes that 40 pence per serving. Now you may of course find it cheaper elsewhere. I'm not saying this is the cheapest protein on earth, but ideally you want value. You want the balance between price and quality. And I mean, there are like 6,000 reviews there, so you can do with that what you will. Beyond that, if you really are on a budget, then I would probably stop there for supplements. One thing I would certainly avoid is like getting anything from high street shops like Holland & Barrett, and definitely never get your protein off a shelf, right? There is a premium for the cost of that shelf. All right, let's move on to gym clothing. So if you're on a budget, obviously don't worry about decking yourself out in, you know, the latest like Nike, Hyper, Knit, Dry Feel, Tech Wear. That's definitely what they're all called. You know, just wander down to Primark or somewhere else with like 20 quid in your hand and deck yourself out with something comfy. Ultimately, like there's no objective difference. It doesn't really matter what you look like in the gym. Now, if and when you do choose to spend a bit more money on gym clothing, because sometimes it does feel good to feel like you look decent, right? Then again, the focus for me, I think at least, they're all just opinions, you know, should be a lot like the food waste really, on longevity. Because let's say 2 t-shirts cost £20 and £30 respectively, but the one that costs £30 lasts you twice as long. Well then, by all measures really, it is cheaper. Now some of the stuff that I wear, I have actually been wearing for like 2.5, maybe 3 years by now. I've threw it through the wash like a zillion times, like hot washes, right? And it's still fine. I'll still probably get more wear out of it. Now granted, I didn't pay for this stuff because like I'm a famous YouTuber. People pay me to wear the stuff, like, you know, I don't know if that's too obnoxious or not. Sometimes I throw in like ironic obnoxiousness, but I don't know if that's maybe that's too far on, you know what I mean? Because not everyone gets it all the time. Some people think you're actually like a tit. I mean, I'm a tit, but that's not why. Anyway, I'm not even saying you have to go and buy this stuff specifically. I'm just saying if and when you do buy clothes, not even gym clothes, right? Let's go broader. All clothes, just think about like how long that's going to last. And also, by that token, more expensive stuff doesn't necessarily indicate that it is better quality, because it might just be marked up based on nothing, right? But again, not just cost wise, also environmentally, it's better if you don't have to buy something new like every 6 months. Now things like squat shoes that provide a flat sole and a bit of heel to make squatting easier, they're really a luxury. You can just place some plates under your heels and get the same effect without spending like 100 quid. Wrist wraps probably aren't necessary unless you really need that wrist support, but I do think straps can be a real help, and considering that you can pick those up pretty cheap and get quite a lot of use to them, I would say that they are probably one of the more worthwhile purchases when it comes to like clothing and accessories. All right, let's move on to training programs. Now you might think I'm biased because I sell training programs. I mean, that is certainly a conflict of interest. However, I do think, I mean, that's the reason I sell them, right? I do think that for what you spend on it, it really can be a worthwhile investment if you are serious about making progress. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy one necessarily, right? If you have some kind of knowledge, you could do a bit of research and try and put one together yourself, right? And even if it's not the best program in the world, you will still benefit from the structure and consistency that provides. Now, otherwise, you could try and get your hands on something for free. I'm sure people put out free programs. I've put out a few over the course of the years. And if not, like, I'm not encouraging anyone to break the law, but like, let's say one of your mates bought a program from someone and then like they went to the gym and then you tailed them and copied what they did and you happen to slip them a $5, like, just teamwork, man. Do you know what I mean? No YouTubers are going bankrupt over that, like. Too many people pirating me basic PPL split, man. One thing I would say is don't buy a personalized program unless there are specific reasons for that personalization, because you do obviously pay a premium to have that bespoke aspect to it. So if you are just like a normal dude or girl, you have no particular injuries or physical limitations, you don't really have any equipment limitations, you just go to a normal fully equipped gym and you don't have specific areas that you need to focus on, you just want to generally build muscle or generally build fat, then just get a general program. Okay, some closing thoughts. So to me, it's really about prioritizing where you spend your pennies. For me personally, I would probably spend a little bit more on my gym membership. I mean, that is what I actually do, because I think that the value you get out of that, being able to go to somewhere better to train every day, thinking about the time that you can spend in the gym, it's really worthwhile when you consider, like, I've dropped more on sushi on a Friday night than I've dropped on a full month's gym membership. Like, where's the, you know what I mean? It's still, I think it's a relatively cheap thing. I would try and place most of my frugality focus on food, because that's really where you spend the most money and therefore where you stand to save the most. And to be honest, the best way you can possibly do that is just planning and preparation. I would deem a protein powder and creatine as worth it for pretty much any but the tightest of budgets. But beyond that, then again, supplements are a luxury for when you have a bit of, what's the word for like spare cash? Disposable income. That's 2 words. Now same goes for like lifting accessories like squat shoes, a lifting belt, and like the latest gym attire. Like really, these are luxuries for if and when you have disposable income to dispose of. I'm not on form today, right? I hope that helps. So it saves you some pennies. I'm so small. See you later.
Joey Lenny is my hero.